Commissioner.
Wait.
All right, now we're good. You're good to go.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. This is the Environment Committee in the city of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and I'm calling the meeting to order at 2:00 p.m. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have the entire committee here. We will do a quick roll call so that Monique, who is with us for the first time on screen, can see who you are, and those that are watching can also see who officially serves on the City of Rehoboth Beach Environment Committee. We do welcome those that are out there watching the meeting, and I welcome your input after the meeting. If there are things that you have, especially concerns or opinions or information that you would like to share, please do not hesitate to do that. There are no official registered public today to speak with us. So with that, we'll go through the roll call. If you would just wave and say here. Charlie Garlow, Catherine Bergwin, Heather Metz, Mary Peck.
Here.
Nettie Green, Stuart Martins.
Here.
Kevin Carr, Monique Buckles.
Here.
And myself, Commissioner Dick Byrne, as chair of the committee, and Charlie is our assistant chair. So thank you all. We certainly have a quorum and we are able to do official business today. Next item is to approve the minutes from the March 17th, 2021. You've all received the minutes. Again, a special thank you to Catherine for doing such a wonderful, detailed job for all of us. We greatly appreciate it. And so if there's a motion to approve the minutes, I'd like to hear that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Is there any discussion, any additions, deletions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and wave.
Say aye.
Anyone against? Okay, meeting minutes from March 17th are unanimously approved. Thank you. There is no correspondence that I have received. Charlie, have you received any official written correspondence?
No, Dick.
Okay. So we will move right into updates and then into discussion as the agenda indicates. I just have a couple of very short items to provide as updates because they're not on the agenda for discussion. I did share a lot of information with you earlier today. I'm sorry it got all bunched together in a couple of hours on fairly short notice. My schedule the last couple of weeks just didn't give me much more time than what I had in doing that. That's not the way I like to do it going forward. I will try to spread these things out so that you receive them as they are most timely. One of the items that you did receive was the 5G small cell site ordinance update from the city. On March 19th, the commissioners again considered the amendment to the then current ordinance as city calls for. There was a public hearing. There were several people that and entities that spoke again at the official public hearing. This was after many meetings going back to probably at least the first of the year that the city has been discussing this. And I bring this up because a lot of the information included in that amendment came from the work of the Environment Committee led by our own Heather Metz, who gave us a lot of direction and support, did a lot of research on that. And Heather, we're thankful to you for that. The city should be thankful to you. And if you take time to go in and look at what I sent, the work of this committee did greatly influence that. While not everything we proposed was accepted, a great deal of it was, and we certainly influenced the direction. It's certainly a topic that is not going away. It'll be back in front of us, other communities, as we go forward. I'm sure you've noticed in recent weeks that the city of Dewey Beach is having a lot of discussions and debate on this. So when it seems pertinent again, or when one of you or several of you think we need to have committee discussion, then just let me know well in advance of setting an agenda. And just to remind you, the agenda is legally set 7 days in advance of the meeting. So about 8 to 9 days in advance of the meeting, I have to get our draft agenda to Ann Womack, the city secretary. She publishes it 7 days out. You receive it. It goes into a number of official publications. It goes to the Gazette and so on. So once that is out, we can certainly skip things that are in the agenda, but we can't add things. So for example, we could not have a 20-minute robust discussion about 5G right now. We can in the future if we say that that's important and we want to do that and get it officially on an agenda. So my point today is to thank you. We did influence the new ordinance in the city. An item that I have not sent yet because I didn't want to overwhelm you before the meeting, but I will send you after the meeting today is some information regarding the work that the city commissioners are doing in terms of revising the city tree ordinance. It has been talked about in a variety of ways for years. More recently, a committee that no longer exists, but did exist for a couple of years called the Law Oversight Committee, put a lot of time into proposing a revision of the tree ordinance. I know that Mary Peck, while she was not a part of that, has had some input into that. And so I will be sharing some information with you. Those of you that have an interest, that want to take a close look at it, your thoughts, your response, your input will be most welcome by the city. So that's the reason that I will send it out, because certainly trees as a part of our important green infrastructure in the city of Rehoboth Beach is certainly a critical part of our environment. And the mayor has asked several committees to provide input. I can also tell you that Commissioner Susan Gay has been appointed by the mayor to be kind of the go-to lead commissioner on this effort. So I will take some of the information that she has compiled and forward that to you a little later today, and then ask you to take a look at that if you have an interest. If it's something you don't have time for, you don't have an interest in, I fully understand. But the tree canopy in our city is a critical part of our environment. So that will be coming after the meeting today. And with that, I want to go into old business. And letter A, the first item is update and continued discussion on elimination of single-use plastic products with a focus on straws, to review the survey results from the Chamber of Commerce, and for us to discuss next steps regarding placards and signage. And we have been having this discussion, as you all know, for several months. We've had a small subcommittee of Charlie and Stuart and Nettie kind of taking the lead on moving this ahead. And I don't know that one is more of a spokesperson than another. Stuart initially some months ago was leading some things. Charlie's been in contact more recently with the chamber. We did work with the chamber to do a survey. Charlie, let me just go to you, and you can talk a little bit about, what's happened since the last month, and then we'll ask for Stuart and Eddie to jump in. I'll fill in any blanks, and let's have some discussion that will then lend itself toward next steps. Charlie, and you're muted right now.
Muted, Charlie.
Unmute my auto. There I am.
There you are.
Thanks, Dick. We appreciate your support, and Stuart and Nettie as well. We have been working with the Chamber of Commerce and Carol Everhart to design and get sent out the questionnaire for the, 63 different eateries that we have in downtown Rehoboth. And the response was very poor, although according to our Carol and other friends at the Chamber. That is to say, several people opened up the email message. Not very many people responded, like a handful. And so that's not giving us a very good read on what the business community thinks. Then the question comes, well, what does that mean or indicate? And we've had some discussion. Does that mean everybody's happy with the whole idea of having straws by request only and no plastic straws? Or are they feeling something different? And what should be our next move vis-a-vis the commissioner? Should we make a recommendation based on not really very much evidence of support or non-support from the business community? So I'm going to ask Nettie and Stuart to chime in with their thoughts. Nettie, you want to go first?
Let Nettie go.
Well, of course, we don't know what the business community thinks. And my feeling is that we need to move ahead. And I have a motion that I could make about that. But in our suggestion to the commissioners about straws, and that we as volunteers, anybody who wants to volunteer from our environment committee, could go around to these 63 eateries and do some education, and also offer what SOLA, Jan Conacy, is saying that they could print up for us. And instead of getting into stickers and so on, just say, this is what's going on with straws. This is what's happening maybe a little bit with plastics too, with our ocean. And so, say, would you like some of these placards? And just print up maybe 1,000 and see what happens. If we need to print more, fine. Jan Conacy is meeting with her SOLA group this week and would like to know I asked her maybe if she could come to the meeting, but she's doing something else. And, but she's very willing for SOLA to support this and to print up these, and they might even be able to go and talk to businesses too. So this is my feeling, and I do have a motion to that effect. So
how about if we sit on that, Nettie, until we have further discussion?
Yeah.
And then,
also, if I could add, I also spoke with Jackie Kisiel from the, she's head of science for the 5th grade in Cape District, and writes grants, and they have various subjects that of course fit with everything that we talk about: patterns of earth and sky, modeling matter, ecosystems, earth systems. They would like to help us in any way they can. I would think she could even, these 5th graders might be very interested in making some posters. Her first choice is like decorating recycling bins with an art teacher. But she has some other things too. I mean, that's another discussion. But she might be able to help us also.
Stuart?
Obviously, this is a topic that has come up every meeting for over a year. We have engaged SOLA 3, as Nettie just indicated. We have engaged the RB HOA. They're aware of our efforts and supportive. We've engaged a workshop with the commissioners on a working shop a couple months ago, and they were very enthusiastic and actually wanted to go a lot further than we were proposing. We've engaged the chamber on 3 different occasions now over about 12 months. Carol and Emily have been very supportive and worked very hard to try to engage the business community. So they have done their due diligence in putting surveys. They've done 2 surveys. The first one was way better attended than this most recent one. But they've done what they're required to do as officials of the chamber. We've also engaged with Main Street Rehoboth. They're aware of what we're doing and are very supportive. So we have been transparent. We have engaged the entire community. And right now, this committee is kind of like pigeonholed, and effectively pigeonholed from getting much more done, because we're spinning wheels doing this stuff, doing the work and doing the grinding. And it's like the grinding is coming to a halt. So I think it's time to, and straws is not, we all know this, straws is not the big issue of what's causing the pollution of the ocean. It was a beginning, but the real key here was the education, the educational component and the teaching component for families, for all the visitors we have, as well as for the residents and the owners of restaurants and bars and stuff like that, was the real key here. It is very vanilla. And so we have, I don't think we've left any stone unturned. We've even done, DenRec has been involved. Plastics Free Delaware has been involved. They're very excited if we can get anything done. I think it's time to move forward and not continue spinning wheels. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart, Nettie, and Charlie. Others that would like to add to this discussion, ask questions, put out ideas? Mary, is your hand up? Okay.
Yeah, I would just say I agree with Stuart that it's time to just propose something for the commissioners, move it out of our committee. You know, the businesses, at least you could say there hasn't been any big objection to it, and they'll have another chance if, you know, once it goes to the commissioners and they would have their whole process if they're going to do any kind of ordinance requiring restaurants to do straws on request only. So I think we've done, as Stuart said, we've done is everything we can, and it's time to put the proposal forward.
Thanks, Mary. Others?
Sorry, did you call on me?
Yes, Mary, go ahead, and then Catherine.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I feel like you guys have explored all the options, and it's a little disappointing that the businesses didn't respond, but I would think that maybe because it's not full season, not everybody is there, and all the businesses are maybe a little overwhelmed by everything, that maybe that's why you didn't get the responses back. But yeah, I support you guys fully going forward with what you've done already. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree too. My question though is what was the difference between the first survey and the second survey? I read the second one, but I can't remember the first one. Stuart?
Second one, we had 29 responses. So and Carol said,
the second one or the first one?
First one, there was 29. And
yeah.
And as she said, there's 119 establishments, 79 of them with sit down. And this is exactly what they get when they put a survey out, was the first one. The second one was just abysmal. I think there was 3 or 4, and it's
five.
That's so it's way below. So it's, you know, Carol had to do this, and she had to do this to be transparent. So if anybody comes back on her, she can say that we have tried, and she and Emily have done a yeoman's job in the work that they have done trying to help us.
Okay, so my only question is that with the second survey, it's would you be okay with this, or this? What did the first survey highlight?
The first survey was highlighting straws in general, and would you be in favor of eliminating? We were talking then about the compostable and biodegradable straw, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So there was like 7 questions in that survey talking about all that, and there was
And good response that the eateries were in favor of doing that.
there was about a third of them that were in favor of it. Some of them had already started doing it. The 3 of them already were using compostable straws and stuff like that. And the comments were, there's a lot of comments, but one of them was that they were very expensive, which they are. And then DENREC came and said you should not be using compostable because they don't have any ability to compost on it unless you have a commercial compostable. So we've learned a lot. They've taught us a lot. I think we're ready to. The idea as a whole is to use substantially less straws than what we're using right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts regarding this survey and comments. It went to be very specific, it went initially to 63 eateries downtown Rehoboth Beach. About 55 opened that email because the chamber is able to track, who actually opens the email. Only 5 responded. So in some brief email discussion with Carol, there's a sense that timing is everything. It's a very challenging time for our eateries, for our restaurants. Right now, they're just trying to get back open. They're hiring, they're ordering, they're trying to figure out when to move outside, et cetera, et cetera. And so we probably did not pick a very good time to engage them on a topic that didn't seem relevant to anything that was their priority right now. Had we done this, at another time, perhaps, the results would be different. Carol and I said that I would share this. Carol and Emily recommend that committee members voluntarily go around and individually talk to management in the restaurants, to engage them in that way, to find out what they're interested in, what they're willing to do. And they feel, and particularly Carol feels, that in that way we would probably get the kind of support that we're hoping for and the kind of involvement and participation. So I don't know, Nettie, if that's a part of your what you're thinking of going in that direction, but
okay. I agree with you, Dick, except when we look at what the state did with plastic bags, there wasn't the education before that happened. And I think sometimes people pay more attention if there is a mandate. Like what I'm suggesting is January the 1st, 2022. This is going to happen in Rehoboth. So we're here to talk about it. I don't know that businesses are going to be interested in talking with us if there is not such a mandate. I mean, we see from the survey that there's very little interest in paying more money to get these paper straws, and so my feeling is both, that we need to do the education, but there needs to be some type of, okay, we understand things are hard, but this is coming down. This is going to happen. That's just, I think people would be more open to our talking, but maybe I'm too much of a school teacher.
Yeah, the concept of mandating anything does not fly very well with my colleagues, and certainly with the chamber, and even Main Street is not interested necessarily in mandating right now. That's not to say we can't propose that. The vast majority of you there's only a few of you that can vote on this. But I mean, we can go that direction, but it's what leads up to that, I think, is what's critical. You know, how do we get to the point where there is compliance? And ideally, you know, how do we get voluntary compliance from my perspective? How do we get people to want to participate in this? And that was the idea, at least I thought, of some type of placard, some type of signage, regardless of, you know, what shape it took, that would move customers toward voluntarily complying, and the restaurant management towards saying, okay, you know, we're going to give people a choice. And so that was the direction I thought that we were headed, you know, after the first survey and after the first you know, last month and the months before discussion. Charlie, is your hand up? I can't see for sure.
Well, I was adjusting my glasses, but I'm willing to say something, which is, seems to me
Please
that
do.
you know, we've met with a large number of the business community when we had that gathering over there at the, what's the name of the hotel, starts with a B, the Bellhaven.
Bellhaven.
And they were-
Belmore.
Belmore, thank you, I'm sorry. Anyway, and they seem to be in person, very much in favor of helping the sea turtles and helping reduce litter and all those sorts of things. So I think that basically this is an opportunity to do voluntary compliance. All the education we've been doing.
Charlie, could you just hold it for a minute? I like what you're saying. There's somebody has a lot of background information that's really interfering. And if you could please deal with that. Charlie was on a good roll here, and I lost about the second half of what you said. Thanks, sir.
We met at the Bellhaven with the members.
It's Charlie making that noise.
Okay, Charlie, is it in your microphone or in your room?
I think it would help if everybody muted their phones when they're not talking. And then this way, whoever's talking can actually have the only noise on based upon other calls that I do.
Yeah, good idea. I think that's what we're doing. Okay, Charlie, let's try again.
Okay, I will try not to talk out of both sides of my mouth and make an echo that way. How's that? Lawyer that I am, do that.
Now, Charlie, it's happening again.
It's happening again.
Maybe whatever it is.
Spoke very slowly in individual syllables. Does that?
Yeah, it's not your voice. There's other noise. Yeah, like that, like a crashing noise.
Sounds like you're moving your laptop. Yeah, just keep the laptop still.
Keep the laptop. Okay, I'm keeping the laptop still. I was saying that we had met in person at the Bellhaven with members of the business community, and they were very supportive of the idea of reducing litter, helping the sea creatures. They're all very nice, warm-hearted people. And in my opinion, that means that they have had plenty of opportunity to be educated on topic, and they have had an opportunity to do voluntary compliance on their own if they wanted to. In fact, when I went to Grotto's the other day, they had a big sign on the wall that said straws by request only. They're not required to do that. They're doing that voluntarily. It's not to say that they didn't serve me a straw, even though I didn't want one, but that's, you know, the many a slip. The waitress just forgot. The point is, if we continue to say it's always voluntary, then we'll be in the same pickle we're in right now. I think we ought to go to the commissioners and say, look, commissioners, if you want to make this mandatory, great. If you want to make it voluntary, fine. But we think that mandatory is a better idea, because that would give us the opportunity to go around and talk to people and say, hey, this is going to become mandatory come January of 2022 or whatever date is chosen. And we'd like to help as much as we can by educating you about the issue and showing you different placards that could be used to help out with educating your customers and your wait staff. That's my recommendation, is that we put forward to the commissioners a proposal which gives them options.
Thank you. That came through very well, Charlie. Apparently, when you slide your laptop around, we get all of that extraneous noise. Thank you.
Sorry.
have we gone full circle and we're back to Nettie? Any other comments, thoughts? Nettie, if you would unmute yourself, please, and let's get back to you then.
You may want to reword this, but okay. I move that the Rehoboth Beach Commissioners mandate that from January the 1st, 2022, all eating establishments offer only paper straws available on request, excepting unusual situations where a plastic straw would be required. I also move that volunteers from the Rehoboth Beach Environmental Committee visit every eating establishment in Rehoboth Beach, educating owners as to the reasons for this upcoming mandate, and also offering table placards to educate the public.
Great motion. I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. It is seconded. What additional discussion? Are there thoughts about specifically now what is on the table? What Nettie's words were? Is there some wordsmithing, some changes? Let's go to Heather.
Yeah.
First.
I guess maybe I should clarify what I said before. I support everything in that motion except for the word mandate. And I just, to clarify what I said earlier, I hear what you guys are saying, but as somebody who, my sister and my mom are in the restaurant business right now, and I honestly feel like if somebody were to knock on my sister's door and give her a piece of paper with the word mandate on it, that she would just completely come unglued. We put such a burden on these businesses to ask them to do one more thing at this point. I can't in good conscience support that. So I completely support your proposal if we were to say voluntarily. And I would be happy to hit the pavement with you guys this summer and hand out placards and talk to people and do all of those things. That's just my conscience, I guess.
Thanks, Heather. Other comments, discussion? Catherine?
I'm not a voting member, but I think we also heard this idea about making it voluntary from Dee Durham too. That she said probably don't force it, but so we could make this motion, we could provide this motion and still use this date or even an earlier date if we want, but I feel stay away from the mandate. We didn't.
Okay, maybe I move, we move or whatever, that the Rehoboth Beach Commissioners ask that from January the 1st, 2022, just ask, request that from January 1st, 2022. Would that be more acceptable? That the commissioners request that this is what businesses do?
I'm not a good on the spot thinker. Much better when I have some time. I'm not sure that is the word, but just or propose or something that just says, this is what we propose, and or whatever word we choose. You know what I mean?
I see Mary's hand up.
Yeah.
And then, Mary.
I want to say that as a voting member, I do support the mandate. I think without the mandate, we're pretty much done. So again, it's not a heavy thing, and I don't think there's going to be anything in there in the mandate with fines, penalties. I think it's just restaurants are to say straws on request only, and I really don't see that as burdensome at all. So I would vote yes on the mandate.
So if it's called a mandate, then I'm coming back to those of you that support that direction. How is it enforced? I mean, you just said, but there would be no fine, no enforcement, so on. Let's talk about that a little bit, Mary.
Yeah, well, that's something that would have to be fleshed out with if it's a mandate, I guess the way the city would work it is an ordinance stating that restaurants are to only offer straws on request only. And then we can start out with, I don't know, we could eventually put some kind of teeth in it, but it could be basically a system where they could theoretically have a fine or the way I've seen when I've worked in environmental law, you might put stuff in there, but then the city would have a lot of discretion as to how to implement it, and whoever it is that, I don't know, the city doesn't have restaurant inspections. I think that's the state. So I'm not sure, that's something would need to flesh out and think about who in the city would actually even check it or look at.
Right. So it would be almost impossible, given our current staffing in the city, to do any enforcement, to do anything around enforcement, because we just don't have the staff to do that. We're having great challenges with normal staffing right now during the pandemic. It has become incredibly challenging. Let me give you a very brief example. Normally in the summer, we are authorized to have 28 young police cadets. You're all familiar with seeing them over the years. They provide an incredible service for the city. We so far, and this probably isn't going to go up, and if anything, it could go down. We so far have only 15 that have been hired. That probably, and many years, we lose 1 or 2 or 3 from the initial hiring. And that's just indicative of the entire staffing situation right now. Now, post-pandemic, will things begin to change? We certainly hope so. So it's just very difficult to do follow-up on a lot of kinds of things right now in the city. And that's kind of an aside is all. I see Stuart's hand. And Stuart, unmute, please.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult to mandate and police something, and I would not recommend policing something because of the difficulty restaurants are in. One of the things that we talked about a couple months ago that is cost of these placards, and we did have a couple of people, I think even Sola 3 had mentioned something about kicking in for the cost. DENREC had indicated something of possible. I didn't go back to them, but here again, we need to get the cost out. And I think if any of us were to go out and encounter the owners or the managers of the places and give them these placards and say that we're asking this, we can't do that as a citizen. I don't even think we can't even do that as a committee. We could only do that if we are, I don't know, I can't come up with the word, deputized by the commissioners. Mm-hmm. The commissioners are, we're acting on behalf of the commissioners to put 2,000, and they're 2,000. I think 2,000 was the initial purchase. We are authorized to give 2,000 of these out to a 50-year restaurant, whatever it is, and we are requesting that these be put. The commissioners are, on behalf of the commissioner, we're asking that you put one of these placards on every single tabletop that you have in your restaurant or bar top, however we decide it. Mandating, policing something, you can't do it. It's not gonna work, and it kind of violates the thing of a summer fund for the summer DC's summer capital.
Well, I want to say that our role as what we are is to advise the commissioners on steps that the city can take to protect the environment. So if we're just talking about something that, volunteers are going to go around to restaurants and say, why don't you try this and that? That's great, but that's not what we're here for. And we shouldn't waste any more time on this if that's where it's going, because that's not our role. I mean, it's good if people want to do that, but we have a lot of stuff to work on as in this city to protect the environment. And if this is just some take it or leave it, education, that's good. Or we're going to ask the city for money. What are we asking the city of Rehoboth Beach to do about straws? Do we want them to fund the placards? That's one thing. Or do we want them to put in a regulation? But the city is not who organizes volunteers to run around and educate the public. So unless they want to buck up. So, so I think we're done. I know all respect to all the work everyone's done, but I don't think it's a good use of the time to every month talk the same exact thing on educating the public about straws if we're not going to ask the city to do anything. So, that's why I said I would vote for the mandate. But, if you all in your personal lives want to talk to the schools, the teachers, the SOLA, that's great. But I think we've reached the end of the road as a city advisory committee.
Kevin?
Yes, instead of a mandate, I would have the city say, it's a good thing to do. That would get a bunch of people to do it. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Catherine?
One last thing. I think we should just go ahead and the people that can vote, because I agree. We're like, I hate this expression, but we're beating the dead horse. The people that can vote. And I think that I can't remember what else I was thinking, but I just think let's go for it. Let's pass it on to the commissioners and let the commissioners decide. And mandate or suggest or whatever, you guys that can vote, you decide on how to propose it.
That's my feeling too. The commissioners need to decide how strongly to put this, how, if there would be any consequences with people not following it. But it's up to the commissioners. But I think it needs to be strong. We're beating a dead horse.
Okay, Heather, and then I'm going to jump in and make some comments. Heather?
Yeah, Nettie, I appreciate that you wrote the proposal in advance, so you have the wording all written down. Would it be possible for us to change the wording to either to say mandate or request, and then let the commissioners decide how they want to move forward with it, so that we're not in the position of saying a mandate, because I don't think we have actually the authority to do that anyway, but would it be possible to just add that? It would make the vote for me
I would be glad to put it that way, to change it to request. I move that the Rehoboth Beach Commissioners request that from January the 1st, 2022, all eating establishments offer only paper straws available on request, excepting unusual situation where plastic straws would be required.
Well, you can even say mandate or request, and then let the commissioners decide. That's kind of what I was saying, because I see Charlie, I see the head shaking, and I appreciate that you want the word mandate in there, and hopefully you appreciate why I don't. But this at least would leave it up to the commissioners. It would maybe make everybody feel better. Just a suggestion.
And that's what I was thinking, but forgot, giving them a couple of options.
Okay.
And then they decide.
As a lawyer, I just want to say, what does it mean when the city of Rehoboth Beach requests somebody to do something? It's just not something that is done, but it's not, that'll sound good if they want to announce it at the meeting as, we're a green city and we like this and we like that, but it's maybe it'll get us somewhere, but it's kind of a weird thing to ask the city to do, to request restaurants to do something. So, is that if you were requested by a police officer to do something, do you have to do it or not? I don't know. So that's interesting legal point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me weigh in just a bit here. And we're going to use probably, it looks like just about our entire hour's meeting, but I think that's okay. I don't think that we're beating a dead horse. I think the only way we go forward in a democracy is that we continue to discuss, debate, listen to each other, look at options, look at ideas, and that's what we're doing, folks. And I have great appreciation for this process. The legislative process, even in an advisory capacity, is never neat, clean, and so on. And I know it drives some of you crazy, others of you love it. But that's just the way it is. And I greatly appreciate the respect that you all show to each other also, because we are listening, we are learning from each other, and we're all willing to put our own thoughts out on the table, knowing that they're going to be respected. And that's critical. It's all kind of an aside, but I think that's an important part of this process. So my 2 cents worth is that going forward to the commissioners with a motion that calls for a mandate would probably not pass. I don't know that for certain, but I'm just guessing that my colleagues would not appreciate that, would not support that. I know that the chamber will not support that. I don't know if Main Street would support a mandate going forward. And yes, and indeed we are advisory to the commissioners and the mayor, but they're not going to take this and start wordsmithing it and tinkering with the motion. They're going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to listen, and then they're going to vote, and they're going to vote on what's presented to them. They're not going to rewrite it. It would get kicked back to us as a committee. So my attitude always is, how do you make some kind of a breakthrough? How do you move from where we're at, knowing, there's a goal out here. I mean, we all agree. I think we all agree. Plastic straws should not be available except for those, specific medical situations. Okay. None of us are going to disagree with that. How do we get there? So from my point of view, if the commissioners were to approve a motion that does something like recommends or requests, whatever language we decide is best, I think that's a step forward. I think from where we're at right now, that's a step forward. The commissioners have not dealt with that. And if we can get some funding and support from SOLA 3 and anyone else to help them with some signage, with placards that can start relatively soon in terms of educating as a result of this, I think that moves things forward. It's not that we have wasted our time, because that's the way legislation works. I've had interesting conversations with Heather and others of you, those of you that are scientists, that are engineers, and you deal very precisely with things. I get that. There's not a science to legislation. It's how do you influence people to move in the direction that you want to go. And it's usually somewhat incrementally as opposed to the whole thing. I mean, we see that nationally, we see that statewide, we see that, I've got a cat trying to jump in my lap. So, that's my take on it. But this is a democracy. We do vote. There are currently right now only 4 of us that have a vote. Charlie, Heather, Mary, and myself. I hope by the next meeting, or certainly the meeting after that, May or June, that we have at least one more, so that we have an odd number, so that if we were to vote and tie, then that kind of does create another challenge for us. So with that, we do have a motion on the table. The motion was seconded. So unless the maker and the second of the person that made the motion were to accept a friendly amendment to change the word mandate. I can't remember how you used it, but if mandate was in that, Nettie, I mean,
Yes.
if you're accepting a change to one of these other words, then that's what's on the table. Otherwise, you know, we have to deal with what's on the table, or the maker of the motion, you know, just removes it and we start all over again with the motion. Okay.
Okay. I accept the friendly, the friendly change, and I would change it to request. I think that's stronger than recommendation. I move that Rehoboth Beach Commissioners request that from January the 1st, 2022, all eating establishments offer only paper straws available on request, excepting unusual situations where a plastic straw would be required. I also move that volunteers from the Rehoboth Beach Environmental Committee visit every eating establishment in Rehoboth Beach, educating owners as to the reasons for this upcoming mandate request, and also offering table placards to educate the public.
Thank you very much, Nettie.
Sorry.
My only advice on that would be to maybe drop the word every. That may not be possible to do every eatery. That's a great goal, but you know, I think the goal should be to try to visit just as many as possible.
Visit eating establishments. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Charlie, do you accept that as a friendly amendment? And you're
Unmute. I would like to not accept that as a friendly amendment, but rather make a counter proposal, to say, let's have two separate recommendations. One would say, no plastic straws will be done after this day in order to avoid the nasty word mandate or required. And then have a second proposal, which would say request only. So that way, the commissioners would have an opportunity to vote up or down on, without having to wordsmith anything, the first motion, which makes it mandatory or required. And if that's defeated, then they can consider the second recommendation, which is to make it voluntary. That way we would have both options available for the commissioners to consider and vote on without putting something forward, only mandate, and then that's defeated and we have to go back to the drawing board and come back to them a second time. This is a way of providing them an option, one that's less stringent and one that's more stringent. And they can choose by voting either for the first one, in which case that would be the vote of the commissioners. And if they don't want to vote on the second one, having this talking about it's a recommendation only, then they don't have to vote on that one at all if they don't want to vote on it. Is that something that would be acceptable to Nettie?
I'm really confused. I'm
I'm so sorry.
I feel like we're running in circles and putting before the commissioners. Just, I don't feel that's a step in any kind of direction. I guess I'm confused. I think it's either, I am willing, I want to say request rather than mandate, and request in both situations.
Thanks, Nettie. I'm watching the clock, and so let me see if I can help move this along. Maybe a lot of you have some comments on Charlie's. We could probably spend an hour debating that approach. My take on it is, Charlie, great effort on a creative approach, but I think it's awkward. If I was sitting as a commissioner, which I do, and a committee came forward with that approach, this has got to go back to this committee. This committee's got to figure out where they're at and what they're doing, and that's not helpful. So again, are you willing, Charlie, to accept the friendly amendment? If you're not, then Nettie could take it off the table and start all over again.
I withdraw my second. If anybody else wants to second her motion, I imagine that's a possibility too.
Okay, so it's off the table. Eddie, would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I move that the Rehoboth Beach Commissioners request that from January the 1st, 2022, all eating establishments offer only paper straws available on request, excepting unusual situation where a plastic straw would be required. I also move that volunteers from the Rehoboth Beach Environmental Committee visit eating establishments in Rehoboth Beach, educating owners as to the reasons for this upcoming request, and also offering table placards to educate the public.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second
And
it.
it's going to have to come from either Heather or Mary.
I will second it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. I'm going to do a roll call vote of the four of us that are eligible to vote. And please vote yes or no. And Charlie, Heather, Mary, myself, do you need the motion repeated? I'm going to go through your names in alphabetical order. I'll be the last vote, however. Charlie? You're muted again.
I vote no on the motion.
You voted no.
Correct.
Heather?
I vote yes.
Mary?
Yes.
And myself last, I vote yes. So the motion carries with a vote of 3-1. I greatly, greatly appreciate the process. I don't think that this was a waste of time. We will do our best to get all of this in front of the commissioners at the May 10th workshop. That's a discussion meeting, not a voting meeting. And I will ask a couple of you to participate in that. That's a 9 a.m. meeting. We could be on the agenda anytime between probably 9 and 10 a.m. We'll be fairly early on that agenda, I hope, but time will tell. And then it's possible that it could be voted on at the probably Friday, May 21st Commissioners meeting, but I will confirm all of that with you. Eddie, I would ask if you would, at your convenience today, tomorrow, type that up and email that to me, and I will put it out in front of all of you, because I want you to see, in written form what you've approved. Can we move on in the last? Well, we have 2 minutes, so we're not going to get into any more discussion. This was a spirited, robust discussion. I think we've made some headway, and I do thank all of you. We will and I'm going to do my best now to get us back on track to our first Friday of the month, 10 a.m. meetings. So that would be Friday, May 7th at 10 a.m. Does that still work for everyone? It did before we got into a lot of other kinds of conflicts. And we will go with what we didn't get to. We'll get back to what Mary has introduced to us about bring your own bag signage, and see how, if there's some way that fits in with what we've been talking about. We'll take a look at Dark Skies Initiative and see, are there some practical next steps for us? And then we want to move on to the draft Sustainable Climate Action Plan. If there's any of you, I guess Charlie was an author of that, and I don't know who worked with you, Charlie. If there's any that, want to, if there's not 3 or 4 of you, but if there's 2 of you, somebody with Charlie wants to work on that between now and the May meeting, I would encourage that. With that said, any last words? Monique, thanks for being with us. I hope this didn't drive you away and that you'll stay with us.
Of course not.
And thank you.
Excited.
Love you, Nettie, even though I wasn't with you when I was with you. but
Oh,
I'm not
Charlie,
with
I'm not hurt. I'm not hurt.
We are going to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Charlie. A second. All in favor. Thank you all very, very much. If you have individual thoughts, ideas, critique, etc., don't hesitate to get a hold of me in the coming days. I'm very open to phone call, email, text, whatever you would like.
You're
Thank
doing
you all.
a fantastic job.
Thanks, Monique. Great to have you part of the team here.